So, it's been a year since the last episode. There's some good reasons for that, there's some bad reasons for that. We're not getting into it. Welcome to Best Picture. Hi, I'm Kennedy. In this episode of Best Picture, I'll be discussing the 1946 winner for the Academy Award for, you guessed it, Best Picture, The Best Years of Our Lives. In preparation for this episode, I rewatched this 3-hour epic about returning World War II veterans having trouble assimilating back into society. And I recalled that the first time I saw it, I was surprised at just how good a film it was. What I was not prepared for the second time around was just how much my appreciation for it deepened further. This is the biggest box office draw of the 1940s, and one of the biggest financial successes in film history, yet it's virtually unknown today. You've probably heard of Samuel Goldwyn, who gave his name to Goldwyn Pictures, the Goldwyn Entertainment Company, and of course his grandson, Samuel Goldwyn, of the highly successful Samuel Goldwyn Company. And as if that wasn't enough, he's also the G in MGM, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. But despite being one of the most famous names in the entirety of film production history, he only has one production Oscar to his name. For, you guessed it, The Best Years of Our Lives. So, you've heard of one-time Oscar winner Samuel Goldwyn, but there are 4 names attached to The Best Years of Our Lives that you should know, and unless you're a confirmed cinephile, you probably don't. So who are they? Frederick March, William Wyler, Greg Toland, Harold Russell. Chances are that if you only know one of these names, it's going to be Frederick March, who won his second Best Actor statue for The Best Years of Our Lives. His first is far better known, and why you would know his name. He played both title characters in the classic tale of split personality, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. March is at his peak in both films. He's one of these actors who is truly at his best when he's chewing the shit out of the scenery, and he steals every scene he's in, except when he's on the screen with Harold Russell. Who the hell is Harold Russell then? Fair question. He has one of the shortest IMDb profiles of any Oscar-winning actor, because despite his raw honesty and his riveting presence, he is nearly uncastable, unless you happen to be casting a man with no hands. He is, for practical purposes, playing himself in the film, an American soldier who lost both hands during the Second World War. You can't take your eyes off of him. On one hand, pardon the pun, he is fascinating as he demonstrates the remarkable facility with which he manipulates his world. Lighting cigarettes, dressing, drinking, with just a pair of hooks. On the other hand, the starkness of his emotional and physical helplessness when he's without his prosthetics is the core to his thread through the film. He is truly fantastic, and to this day he is the only actor to ever win 2 Oscars for the same performance. The Academy executive awarded him an honorary Oscar, thinking that it was a truly remarkable performance, but also thinking that there was no way that the Academy members would award a non-actor the Best Supporting Actor award. But then, you guessed it, he turned out to be the sentimental favorite and took the statue home. The film's director, William Wyler, is as elite as directors get. He was nominated for Best Director 12 times, and 2 of his other films will be the subject of future episodes. That is to say, 3 of his films, including Best Years of Our Lives, won the Best Picture Oscar. Only John Ford has more wins at 4, and nobody has been nominated more times. Billy Wilder is a distant second with 8 nominations. When you talk about the greatest director who ever was, Wyler's name is absolutely in the mix. Period. He's like the Wayne Gretzky of film directors. The 4th name, Greg Toland, like William Wyler, will be familiar to the film literate. If you ask any director of photography who the most influential cinematographers of all time are, even odds, they'll mention Greg Toland. The camera work in The Best Years of Our Lives is the best of its time, and not by a small margin, compared to any of its contemporaries, and there is only one horse in this race, and so it should be. Toland had, by this point, perfected techniques that he began refining in the groundbreaking, innovative, and visionary Citizen Kane. Yeah, that Citizen Kane. Photography in that film, which is totally deserving of praise in an otherwise snooze-inducing film, is often mistakenly credited to Orson Welles. But let's be clear, the truly great thing about that film is the camera work, and Greg Toland was the director of photography. By the time he shot The Best Years of Our Lives, 5 years later, Toland had truly polished his technique to its true pinnacle. Out of context, this scene doesn't have the full impact it does in the full narrative, but it exemplifies the true brilliance of Toland's work. The delight of the foreground. And look at Harold Russell playing piano. Isn't he great? Where was I? The delight of the foreground belies the fact that one of the most important moments of the film is happening right here in the deep background. You either have to trust me on this or see the film. See the film, it's totally worth it! So, who are the other nominees? The Razor's Edge, The Yearling, Henry V, and one of the best known, most beloved, heartwarming films of all time, It's a Wonderful Life. I can't speak to The Razor's Edge, haven't seen it. The Yearling, utterly forgettable. Henry V is far too stylized to deserve credit as being anything more than a play put on film. Which is exactly what it is! As an aside, I got my start in theater. I have great love and appreciation for it. But theater is theater and film is film. And if you're going to take a play and turn it into a film, you have to treat it with the cinematic language of film. Or you have to come up with a great cinematic excuse to shoot it like a play. And Henry V failed!
You follow?
And as for the beloved view of It's a Wonderful Life, which obviously I do not share, that really only came into being in the 1970s when it started receiving regular Christmas season television broadcasts. I think it's inarguable that there are elements of the best years of our lives that do not hold up well for the modern audience. Thematically, it comes to a rather Disney-fied endpoint when all our returning servicemen are successfully assimilated back into American society. But when looked at in the context of its day, it must have been a frightfully subversive film. Case for the defense number one. When, on the night of his return, a drunken Frederick March says to his wife,
"You're a bewitching little creature. In a way, you remind me of my wife."
You know damn well he's letting on far more than he should. Case for the defense number two. How about this bold declaration?
I'm going to break that marriage up.
Hello, Hays Code! Yet the whole film unfolds against this backdrop that has more in common with Leave It to Beaver than Born on the 4th of July. But it accidentally serves as a fantastic juxtaposition. It's as if, for modern viewers, there's this secondary discussion going on with the film. Today, we have a more developed sense than this film does of the hell that the returning soldier has reintegrating back into society. And we can see that this movie is making a valiant and clearly effective for its day attempt at bringing that reality to light, merely 2 years after the Second World War has ended. We watch as privileged observers on an extra level that simply did not exist for the original audiences of the film. We can see how bold it is in its successes, and at the same time how it naively fails to speak as plainly as it's trying to about these issues. So, in short, did it deserve to win in the context of 1946? Without a doubt, I think there are actually few winners whose right to the title of Best Picture is as clear as this one's. Is it a choice the Academy should be embarrassed about? No way. Now, no doubt, there are going to be fans of It's a Wonderful Life whose a priori response is going to be that the Capra Classic was robbed. But I think if they actually sit down and watch Best Years of Our Lives, all but the most close-minded of them are going to be forced to agree that Best Years of Our Lives is at the very least a pretty elegant pretender. Was there a better choice? I accept that the strength of my dislike for It's a Wonderful Life is the minority opinion, and to that end, I accept that it too was a reasonable choice. But if you look at the facts, Best Years of Our Lives was the #1 film of the decade. Weiler, Toland, March, Russell, strong supporting cast, 6 other Oscar wins besides Best Picture. It was an unstoppable juggernaut. Now, that isn't always a good reason to win Best Picture, but sometimes it simply is. Do I recommend it? You guessed it, I sure as hell do. This is one of the most surprising films in the Best Picture canon. Sure, I thought the name was trite, and the 3-hour running time made me cringe, and I have a lower level of expectation for films that are in black and white. But still, I loved this movie. When I went to go back and watch it the second time, I actually was surprised to discover that it was in black and white. In the intervening years, I had colored it all in my head. Neither time did I ever find a point in the movie where I felt it was getting long. And yeah, the name is trite, but the credits are over quickly, and then you can get on with a film that is really just awesome! Next episode, the film that announced to the world that Dustin Hoffman was more than just a motherfucker. I'm Kennedy, and this has been Best Picture. One Oscar to his name. You guessed it. Best Picture.